just specialize in with industry. We have to at that time models.
Welcome, everyone. We'll just give the stragglers a couple of minutes to join in and get started in about 2 minutes, if that's okay with all of you. Amazing. Welcome, everyone, to the Symposium and graduation ceremony for the spring cohort of the Lumiere Research Scholar Program 2021. It is unbelievable to me that time has passed so quickly. It just feels like yesterday that we were going through orientation for all of you, and now you're at the other side, and it's great to see the students, the parents, the partners, the mentors, and of course, Elizabeth, thank you for joining us today. You know, I was thinking about what I could say to kick this off, and I just kept coming back to the same thing, which is interview weekend. That those 2 days when all of us at Lumiere are so excited because we're basically doing back-to-back interviews with so many incredible high school students from around the world. And the students we encounter are very different. Some of you, if you think back to that day, were confident, were certain about what you wanted to study, may even have done research before. But most of you were a bit unsure, kind of nervous about what you were getting yourself into, not sure if you were really up to this task of writing a 15, 20-page research paper for the first time. You knew your broad topic that you were interested in, but you certainly didn't know the details of what you were hoping to do, and you didn't have the language to express the specific subtopics or the kinds of papers or the kinds of authors that you wanted to be engaging with. But you still did it, and you still launched into it, and you got accepted, and you kicked it off. And in the weeks after that, those weeks that moved so quickly, you went from exploring your topic with your mentor, reading papers potentially for the first time, and really challenging yourself and trying to think about what those papers were getting right and what they were getting wrong. You decided on your research question. You changed your research question. You changed your research question again. And then you eventually started writing that research paper. And now you're on the other side, close to completion. Most of you have turned in a draft or a final draft. And hopefully the person that you are now is very different to who you were when you entered this program 3 months ago. I hope that you feel more confident about your ability to understand the topic that you've chosen, the ability to engage in high quality research, to read and critique and write about research, and your ability to speak clearly about this area of interest that you've explored and that you might take forward in college and grad school and beyond. And now that you've had this opportunity, I really think that this opportunity comes with responsibility. And it's a responsibility to share what it is that what you've received as a gift. Of course, I'm talking about the material of your research. You guys have done research on such important topics, on issues such as environmental conservation, on cancer detection, on economic development, on gender norms. I really hope that you're able to take these things that you've learned and spread it out into the world around you. You're able to tell students in your schools, tell your family, tell nonprofit organizations, tell companies about what you've learned and spread the word. I also hope that you're able to share about research itself. We, at this point, now have hundreds of students who are doing Lumiere every year. And in the years to come, we hope that that reaches thousands of students, but it'll never reach every student in every corner of the world. And that's what we hope and pray that you as our alumni come in and do, that you spread the information that you've gained about the research methods, about what it takes to do research, about how you frame research questions and how you write a paper to others all around you. And most importantly, I ask that you spread the values that underlie research, the importance of critical thought, the importance of creativity, the importance of hard work and being curious about the world. That you spread those values and the importance of those values to the people around you, to those who look up to you and those who will continue to look up to you as you go on to do amazing things in the world. And, thinking about those values that underlie research, the things that I just mentioned, there are few people I know who embody those values better than our guest speaker for today, Dr. Elizabeth Quiche, or as I am privileged and honored to call her, Elizabeth. Elizabeth has a PhD in philosophy from Oxford, where she was a Rhodes Scholar. She's taught at Princeton and Duke before serving as president of Agnes Scott College for 12 challenging years, including through a worldwide recession and many difficult times in between, before becoming the first female warden of the Rhodes Trust. And for those of you who don't know, the Rhodes Scholarship is the world's oldest scholarship for highly meritorious students to study and do grad school at Oxford. And that's the context in which I got to know Elizabeth. So I was lucky enough to be selected as a Rhodes Scholar in 2017. And historically, while that's been changing in the past, the role of the Rhodes Trust warden has been a person who's very formal, who's very organizationally involved and who's there at the highest levels. But Elizabeth, I think, has brought a total burst of energy and a total change of character to the role of Rhodes Trust warden. I think we've been so lucky to have someone who's as incredibly talented and intelligent and motivated as Elizabeth, but also someone who's as warm and compassionate and kind as Elizabeth is. And so I feel so lucky to know her. And I am really, really glad that she's made the time to speak with all of you about research. So that's all from me. I'll pass it over to you, Elizabeth. Thank you again for being here. And thank you for speaking to these students.
Thank you so much, Dhruva, for those incredibly kind and generous words. I really, really appreciate it. And congratulations to all of you for completing this stage of your journey as a researcher and now as a Lumiere graduate, and as Dhruva so powerfully put it, also as an ambassador for Lumiere and for the values of this program out in the world. And I also want to just give a shout out of congratulations to Stephen and Dhruva and Nishita, the Lumiere team. I've got to say that I've been so impressed by the Rhodes Scholars and other students that I'm encountering by their kind of entrepreneurial energy, as a pretty young person to start something like Lumiere and to reach out and recruit students from, I believe we have students from 7 countries in this Zoom room, and to create this global community of high school students who are really committed to doing their best work and to being scholars, budding scholars. And it's just very, very exciting. So hats off to the Lumiere team. So, one of the things that you'll come to, you may already know, but you'll certainly come to appreciate over the years is that most graduation remarks, you're not going to remember for more than about 5 minutes. So I don't have terribly high hopes about these graduation remarks. But, as I was thinking about what I might share with you, I realized that what I really wanted to share was something that was inspired by some remarks that were shared with me when I was your age. So I was a high school student, and I had won a scholarship to go to a college in America, Davidson College. And there was a little speech by a gentleman whose family had actually helped to create the scholarship. And something about that speech really stuck with me. And in fact, it's become a kind of guiding light for me. And I think it connects to what you're doing today. And it even connects to the name of the program that you have just graduated from. So it's about the difference between what's shiny and what's shining. So you've just graduated from this program called Lumiere, and Lumiere, in addition to being a really cute character in a Disney movie, which maybe some of you have seen, Beauty and the Beast, but it is the French word for light. And so when I was a high school student, I heard this speech that encouraged me to think about the difference between what's shiny and what's shining. So what's shiny is so many of the things that we aspire to in the world. You know, it's jewelry and prizes and grades and all kinds of things. You know, the things that maybe like your parents are super proud when you come back with really good grades, and you know, shiny things. They reflect the light around them. And they tend to be sort of comparative as well. So something is shiny if it's kind of on, you know, if it's like super stylish at the moment, you know, then you're a shiny person because you're wearing the clothes, or you're carrying the accessories, or you're listening to the music that just happens to be super cool at the moment. That makes you shiny, right? Now, when I say you shouldn't only focus on shiny things, I'm not suggesting that you like not focus on shiny things. If for the parents in the room, I'm not suggesting don't care about grades, right? That's not my message. But my message is that you should always also be asking yourself, how am I doing what is truly shining? And so the difference between a shiny and a shining thing is, a shining thing is something that has light from within. It's not purely reflective. It is something that has enduring value, enduring light, that is kind of self-generated and has intrinsic value. And in fact, in my own work, in studying as a student of moral philosophy, I got really interested in this notion of what has intrinsic value. So you could think of something that is shining as something that has intrinsic value. And what I'd like to suggest is that as you continue your journeys, as Lumiere graduates, as students who are, I'm sure, looking forward to college, and then wherever else that may take you to graduate school, or to jobs, or to internships, all of the things that young people aspire to and should be aspiring to, that you keep in mind always, you always ask yourself, you always reflect, how much am I really focused on what's shining versus what's shiny? Because it's very easy to sort of fall into the trap of only focusing on what's shiny. Like you want to be the best in your class because you want to have the highest grade point average, or you want to be you want to be the coolest person, you know. All of those, one of the things that happens with those kinds of qualities is that they're very context specific. So you can be like the top student in your high school, and then you go to college, and what you'll find is that nobody really cares that you were the top student in your high school. What they care about is kind of how you're showing up in the classroom at that moment. So what was super shiny before, it kind of becomes less relevant over time. But the shining things, they maintain their value. So as you think about your experience with Lumiere, you know, it is the knowledge that you gained, the skills that you gained, that the questions that maybe you figured out how very difficult it is to answer these questions. And so now you're motivated to think, I'm going to keep asking these questions, and I'm going to build my skills so that I can become even better at posing and exploring and pursuing these questions in the future. Those things are shining. They're not dependent on how you compare yourself to other people. They actually are about who you are intrinsically yourself and what values you are projecting, into the world. One of my favorite stories about kind of how shiny and shining, or really how even when you're at the top of your game, you can fall into the trap of being seduced by what's shiny, is a story that a gentleman shared with me when I was at Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar. His name is Baruch Blumberg, and he is a Nobel laureate in medicine, and actually one of the most wonderful human beings I've ever met. And he told a very funny story about himself, where he said that he was at the time a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, and there was a running race that the department was participating in. It was some sort of like university-sponsored running race. And so he, by this point, was a Nobel laureate. He was this highly respected person who had transformed our understanding of hepatitis, and healed lots and lots of, made it possible for lots of people to get treatment who prior had not been able to get treatment. So, he was like, okay, I'm going to run this race. I'm going to run this race. And he goes out, and it was one of those there and back running races. So, and he was not the youngest person in the department. And so he's chugging along, huffing and puffing. And some of his younger colleagues they've actually gone all the way to the end, and they're coming back, and he's huffing and puffing, and they're already like sprinting back towards the finish line. And he got really upset, like, oh my God, I'm such a bad runner. And so he noticed that some of them were looking quite proud as they ran by him. And he sort of turned around and he said, yeah, but I have a Nobel Prize. And he told that story, which suggests that even if you have a Nobel Prize, by the way, you can still kind of succumb to, I should be the best runner in the bunch. Now, one of the things that story shows is that he had a great sense of humor, that he was willing to share that story. But it also shows how wherever we are in our lives, it's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking, oh, I need to be better than other people. I need to like win in this race or that race. And other than professional sports, where really you do have to be better than the other team, in most of life, what matters is how you show up, what you bring to the communities that you're a part of, and how you ultimately demonstrate and exhibit and develop shining rather than shiny values. So what are some of the shining values that I believe and that I have found make a difference through all the ups and downs of life? And Dhruv has already mentioned some of them. There are things like what you have really focused on as Lumiere students, which is curiosity. That gift of curiosity, of asking questions about the world, of trying to understand things, trying to puzzle through things and come up with solutions, that is a shining thing. That is a quality that isn't context specific. Wherever you are, your curiosity will make you a better contributor. Whether you're a student or a team member or an employee or a leader of an organization, curiosity. Courage is another one, where having the courage of your convictions, having the courage to stand up for what you believe, that is also not comparative to others. You don't have to like out-courage somebody else. You just have to be the best version of yourself in the moment. Creativity is a shining quality. Love and friendship are shining qualities, because wherever you are, wherever your life takes you, if you invest in your friends and you build loving relationships, you will build a shining life for yourself. Honesty, and as a researcher, you probably have already figured out how important honesty is as a shining value. that whatever else is going on in your life, being honest with yourself and being honest with others is what's going to enable you to show up and make a difference in the world. And ultimately, that sense of honesty is also going to help you figure out what you're really good at, what gives you joy. And so for some of you, your Lumiere experience may have absolutely like set you on fire, that like, this is what I want to study and this is what I want to pursue. Others, you might have had an experience where you're like, well, that was okay. You know, I learned some things, but some of it was kind of hard and some of it was sort of frustrating. And that's good too, because actually being honest about what gives you joy, what you're good at, how your gifts connect to the world is how you're going to become a shining contributor to the world. And it's okay if you don't yet know what that is, because just so you know, I'll let you in on a little secret. I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So it's okay to be sort of not exactly fully formed as you go through life. But if you have your curiosity and you invest in love and friendship, if you are honest with yourself and others, if you have the courage to stand up for what you believe and to be creative and to keep asking questions, then you are going to be bringing good to the world. And so I congratulate you as you complete this stage of your journey, as you graduate from the Lumiere program. And I wish you all the best on the future stages. And I hope that you will always remember that as much fun as it is to pursue the shiny things in life, it only really matters if you're investing in what truly is shining from within. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for that. I really appreciate that. I have a book right here that I'm just totally destroying by taking notes with what you were writing. So I really like that. We have a tradition after our speakers share to leave a little bit of room for questions from students. And I think there might be a few in the room. So if you have a question, if you guys would be able to use the raise hand function, and then you can unmute yourself and ask from there. So if you have a question for Elizabeth. Shruti, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so I was wondering, did you face any issues with local regulations in the process of widening the global profile of the Rhodes Scholarship? Because I read in your article that that's something that you did.
And Shruti, do you mind introducing yourself as well?
Oh yeah, I'm Shruti. And thank you very much for your speech. It was really nice.
Oh, thank you, Shruti. And Shruti, where are you? Where are you joining us from?
I'm in New Jersey.
In New Jersey. Oh, I lived in Paramus for 2 years. So, and can I just ask, what area did you do your Lumiere project on?
So it was in the area of data science.
Data science, awesome, awesome. Such an important area. One of the really incredibly important areas for curiosity and new knowledge, and it is shaping and will continue to shape our world. So thanks for your question. That's a great question. So I would say, I mean, both at Agnes Scott and at the Rhodes Trust, building diverse and inclusive pipelines is has been really important to me. And it's a huge priority for the Rhodes Scholarship, is how to ensure that young people of every background, and in fact, from every part of the world, can pursue, if they're interested, can pursue the opportunity of a Rhodes Scholarship. And at Agnes Scott, we were really committed to ensuring that students of every background were able to study there. So I think some of the obstacles, I mean, local regulations I'm not quite sure that we've really encountered necessarily local regulations, but we've certainly encountered lots of local kind of contextual issues. And so I'll just give you a couple of examples of that. So one is that when you're trying to create a program that is for students from all over the world, you have to, frankly, know what you don't know and understand like who are the people on the ground who will be able to, access bright young people in their part of the world, who will be able to get the word out and share that. So how to like do outreach effectively. And you really have to depend on local knowledge. And we're lucky at Rhodes that we have alumni all over the world, but they're not everywhere. And so when we've created the Rhodes Scholarship, new Rhodes Scholarships in Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, and in Israel, and in China, and in East Africa and West Africa, we had to kind of find people in those regions who could help us, So it's knowing what you don't know and then doing the hard work, the kind of shoe leather to find those connections. And I think the other thing I would say is that sometimes it's also, being open to like knowing what is really at the core of the integrity of your own processes. So it has to be universal for it to, for you to be you, right? For the organization to be you. And where might there need to be adaptation to local realities? And so, for instance, we have changed the age criteria in some cases because in some parts of the world, young people do military service, or if they're doctors, they have to do clinical practice. And so we were keeping people from joining us because of that. So it's kind of striking the right balance between having, you want there to be fair and kind of consistent processes, but you also want to adapt to local conditions. And so figuring out the right balance between those.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Shruti.
Nikita, would you like to go next?
Hi, Nikita.
Hi, so I'm Nikita. My paper was on it was kind of like an intersection between gender studies and policymaking.
Elizabeth, Nikita actually worked with a Rhodes Scholar. Her mentor was Alex Kocha. I don't know if you remember him, but yeah.
Yes, that's wonderful. So cool, Nikita.
Yeah, my question's more so like your experience being like the first female warden of the Rhodes Scholars Trust, because that's like insanely impressive and I'm kind of in awe of you right now. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. No. Don't be in awe. Don't be in awe. So kind of what it's like, what it's been like. Thank you for that question. So, I guess I would say that, my journey has been one of, let me first take a tiny step back, a little bit of historical context. I think everybody in this Zoom room is living at a time in history where there are more opportunities for women than ever before. It doesn't mean that there aren't still a huge number of barriers for women everywhere in the world. And I think one of the biggest barriers one big barrier, there's lots of barriers, but one big barrier is that when you say leader, people still have a male figure in their heads, and in fact, there's like there's very funny kind of experimental psychological evidence of this that people, just unconsciously, when you say leader, they think of a male. So my own journey has been one of in this moment when I'm grateful for the opportunities that are available to women, of kind of pushing myself to aim high, to have the courage to put myself forward. And I think for me, as for many women, and for many men as well, but I think one of the things that often holds us back is there's all kinds of voices in our heads about like how we're not qualified for something, or like we're not ready for something, and my big break professionally came when I applied. I was a professor, assistant professor at Princeton, and I applied to become the director of an ethics institute. And when I read the job description for that job, I thought I would love that job. And then my next thought, like my very next thought was, I would love to have that job one day when I grow up, but it's certainly not something I would ever get now. And I had a mentor who is still a dear friend, who said, and this is, his words are seared in my memory. He said, "Don't be an idiot, apply." And you know, I applied, and they were crazy enough to hire me. And it was one of those where I kind of, you know, like, if you're not in the arena, if you don't put yourself out there, it won't always work, right? I've applied for lots of things that I didn't get. But you know, you're never going to get anything that you don't apply for. So, and for me, that was like that moment where I started to sort of really build my own leadership journey. And so by the time I got to applying for, so, you know, I was president of Agnes Scott, I decided to announce that I was going to leave, which was I have to say, one of the hardest things I've ever done, because I loved it so much and I could have spent the rest of my career there, but I had seen people like stay too long as college presidents. And so there's, you know, another kind of leadership tip is knowing when to leave, like leave when you're, you know, when it's time to pass the baton and you're ready for a new adventure and the institution is ready for a new person to come in and step in. And so I had announced, and then I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be unemployed, because, you know, I had announced I was leaving and I needed to get a job. And so when I found out that the Rhodes Trust was, that role was available, the wardenship was available, I remember thinking, you know, it's time for there to be a woman warden. And it might not be me, but I may as well throw my head in the ring because, you know, if I don't apply, there's no way. And I remember my mentor's voice in my head, you know, don't be an idiot, apply. So that's how I ended up. And then last, I guess what I'll say is, you know, I did have that little, as I arrived, there was that part of me that thought, whew, you know, Oxford is a really old university. It's 1,000 years old. And the Rhodes Trust is 118 years old. And the wardens I remember were incredibly formal. And I thought, you know, can I be myself? Like, will I have to really tone myself down in order to fit? And within a week, I realized, nah, I can just be myself. So that's actually also part of the journey as a woman, as a leader, is to recognize, I mean, you have to pay your dues, you have to do the hard work, you have to be willing to put yourself out there, but also to know that you can be your own authentic self. And I have found that places actually, you know, they're ready for us as authentic women leaders. So I wish you all the best, Nikita, on your own leadership journey. I'm so glad you're working on gender issues.
Thank you. That was, yes, notes already taken. So
Thanks.
I think we have time for one more question. I think I saw someone raise a hand a second ago. If they're still willing.
No worries. If not, I have a question. I have a question, Elizabeth. So I've heard of the Rhodes Scholarship, but I hear that the Rhodes Trust now has an amazing new scholarship and opportunity for students in these guys' shoes and their friends and the people that they know. And I was wondering if you wanted to tell them a little bit about RISE and what it is, and if they knew people who would be a good fit, how they should get them to participate.
Excellent. Dhruva, thank you so much for saying that. So yes, we have a new program, a new partnership program. It's a partnership between the Rhodes Trust and Schmidt Futures, Eric and Wendy Schmidt. Eric was COO of Google. And we share this kind of commitment to talent development and to finding talent everywhere in the world and investing in young people's journeys. And so Rise just launched this year. You can find it on social media as Rise for the World, and as well as on the internet. And we are looking for 15 to 17-year-olds everywhere in the world who are passionate. Oh, thank you so much, Dhruva, who are passionate about making the world a better place and about really developing their own skills and then bringing them to bear to make their own communities and the wider world better. So we are in the process of selecting our inaugural Rise cohort, which will be 100 young people from around the world. And then we'll be shortly opening the application process for Rise for next year. And so at the moment, we're picking 100 global winners, but the beauty of Rise is that the Rise community includes all of the people who complete the application process, and they continue to get connected to each other and also connected to other opportunities. And so whether you are an applicant or a finalist or a global winner, we're really committed to being part of your journey and investing in your journey throughout your life, actually. So yes, please do check it out. Tell people in your networks about Rise, and maybe some of you will apply for Rise if you're between. I think many of you will be between 15 and 17. So we're super excited about it because our sense is that it's such an inflection point in young people's lives. This time of your life, it's when you're really starting to kind of blossom and discover your skills and everything. So we're really excited about Rise as a new way in which we're investing in talent. The other thing, if I may just also add, Dhruva, is because I know that there are people from places like Vietnam on the Zoom room, is just to let you know that for the Rhodes Scholarship, we now have the global Rhodes Scholarship, which is available to students from any country in the world. So some of you are from countries where we have Rhodes selection processes. So that's when you graduate from college and you're going into graduate school. But wherever you are in the world, you are eligible to apply for the Rhodes Scholarship. So I hope that you will also check that out when the time comes, and would love to be able to welcome you to Oxford and Rhodes House someday.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. You are truly, to use your own words, shining. And I think to Nikita's point, I was fanboying with Dhruv in the private chat the entire time. I'm like, Elizabeth's so cool. So thank you so much for being here, and you truly are an inspiration to so many. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're going to, thank you. We're gonna move now to some scholar presentations, which is a really fun part of the ceremony. And this point, we're going to be passing to some students. So I will be presenting and introducing the students as they come up, and then we'll have a small section at the end just to celebrate your success of finishing the program. And then we'll wrap up and send you off into your respective parts of the world. Excellent. Okay. So we're going to start with Pranav. Pranav, are you in the room? I want to make sure that.
Yeah, I'm here.
Excellent. Pranav, I will pass to you to kick us off. But to start, could you please introduce yourself? Where are you? Who your mentor was, and say your research question or topic, and then you could start from there.
Hey everybody, I'm Pranav Marneni. Right now I'm in Georgia, and my mentor was Samuel Lader from MIT. And the research question I looked into was nuclear weapons. Specifically, why were some countries able to succeed in getting nuclear weapons while others didn't? when these different countries were facing the international pressure to stop the development of their nuclear programs. So I hypothesized that the level of leverage placed over the country that was trying to acquire nuclear weapons by its ally and adversary is a key variable affecting the outcome of the country's nuclear program. I'll go more into detail about what leverage is exactly in a couple of slides. Next slide, please. Thank you. So nuclear weapons present a grave threat to the security of the world. They're very dangerous, big bombs, all right? But ever since the end of the 1960s, there's been an international taboo and an international condemnation against nuclear weapons. So that meant that ever since the late 1960s, countries that were suspected of pursuing nuclear weapons have been met with pressure from multiple countries to stop the development of their nuclear programs. However, even with this international pressure, some countries were able to succeed. And it's important to understand why these countries were able to succeed and why these efforts to stop them from getting nuclear weapons failed, so that we can use the lessons from there and apply it to future countries that try to get nuclear weapons. Next slide, please. All right, to see if leverage was in fact a key variable in the outcome of nuclear weapons programs, I compared the case studies of North Korea and Taiwan using existing historical research or existing case studies. And these countries were used since North Korea succeeded and Taiwan failed. And they both had an ally and adversary that had some leverage over them. And since these two countries had different outcomes, I wanted to see if leverage was different. Since if leverage was different, it's most likely that it played some part in the different outcomes. So before we answer the question, we have to see what is an ally and what is an adversary. An ally, I determined, is to be the country that has the most military cooperation and economic activity with the country that was trying to get nuclear weapons. And the adversary is the country that poses the largest security threat to the country that wants nuclear weapons. So for Taiwan, the ally was the US and the adversary was China. And for North Korea, or DPRK as mentioned here, the main ally is China and the adversary is the US. Next slide, please. And before we see if leverage is different, we need to know what is leverage and what are the different types of leverage. So there's two main types of leverage, ally and adversary. So high ally leverage is when the ally is a big source of trade and military assurance, and it's able to sanction trade and take away that military treaty or assurance with the country that's trying to have nuclear weapons without having big negative implications for itself, like national security or war or anything like that. And low ally leverage is when it's not a big source of trade or a big source of military assurance, or if that country can't really sanction trade or take away its military treaty without having bad things happen to it, like slowing of the economy. And high adversary leverage is if the adversary can threaten preemptive strikes, which is basically saying that we will attack your nuclear weapons facilities and we will attack your country if you pursue nuclear weapons. That's one form. Another indication of the adversary can reduce its threat, because the reason the country tries to get nuclear weapons is because of the threat from the adversary. Now, low adversary leverage is when it can't threaten preemptive strikes or can reduce its military threat. Next slide, please. All right, so after I compared it, I found that leverage was in fact a key variable because these two countries face very different types of leverage. Taiwan faced high leverage from the ally since the US had a large amount of economic trade and a key treaty that protected Taiwan from China. And the US could also take away its military treaty and it could sanction Taiwan without having big implications for itself. I won't really go into how this happens and why the US can do it due to time constraints. And also Taiwan faced high adversary leverage from China since it could threaten preemptive strikes, since it had nuclear weapons at the time and a stronger military. And North Korea faced low ally leverage from China because even though China was a key source of military trade and source of trade for North Korea, it couldn't take away the military treaty or sanctions without implications for itself due to a multitude of reasons, which I won't go into due to time constraints. And the US also had low ally leverage since it couldn't hold on to the promises it made during negotiations to reduce its military threat. So basically the US said, okay, we will reduce our military threat in South Korea. However, the US kept going back on its word. It kept going back on the promises it made to North Korea, and that hurt the credibility of the US, and that made North Korea not trust the US. And then the US couldn't also threaten preemptive strikes because South Korea, a key ally of the US, did not want that to happen. And it's important to take in South Korea's consideration because South Korea is so close to North Korea and the US would not want to endanger its ally. So that is what I found. I find my hypothesis to be true, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Manav. I really enjoyed that. I think it's, I like how clearly you talked about the difference between adversary and ally leverage. And it's clear that you've dove really deep into this topic over this time. I'm now going to pass to Anshula for a very different set of topics. Anshula, again, could you please introduce yourself, say a little bit about where you are, your mentor, and then you can kick us off with some of your research.
My name's Anshula. I'm 17 years old and I live in Georgia. My mentor is Konstantin Kaganovsky, who's a PhD student at Stanford University. I wrote my paper on the hippocampal and perihippocampal mechanisms of spatial navigation. Next slide, please. The hippocampus is responsible for many functions. During my research, I focused on the function of spatial navigation. Place cells were first discovered by John O'Keefe in the 70s and are now considered the basic unit of spatial representation in the brain. Place cells in the hippocampus and grid cells in the medial entorhinal cortex fire and work together to create a cognitive map of the environment. O'Keefe's research is now the basis for all modern day research into spatial navigation in the hippocampus. Next slide, please. I wrote a literature review, and in order to do this, I read many research papers. I synthesized and analyzed the information presented by these papers and experiments to create holistic papers that is easily understood by high school and undergraduate students. And in order to accomplish my goal of creating an understandable paper, I used the example of racing drivers and taxi drivers to connect the ideas presented in my paper, driving being an activity that most people can relate to. Next slide, please. As place cells and grid cells fire, neurotransmitters are released at synapses. And as synapses are repeatedly activated, they strengthen through long-term potentiation. LTP is the leading proposed mechanism for the formation of new memories, and as a result, it may contribute to learning. As the environment changes, place cells undergo remapping to form a new cognitive map. Some propose that these maps are encoded and stored as episodic memories, which are memories of events and occurrences, not of semantic information. LTP underlies one form of plasticity, which plays a significant role in remapping and memory formation. Plasticity is the brain's ability to make changes to and adapt to new information. Racing drivers must always be aware of their place on the circuit in order to extract the fastest lap time possible. They need to know where to brake on the entry of a turn and where to accelerate on the exit of a turn. Their place cells will fire as they make their way around the circuit. Racing drivers must keep precise cognitive maps of various circuits in order to successfully complete their jobs. Similarly, taxi drivers need to know the fastest routes around their city. And research has shown that taxi drivers develop more gray matter in a specific area of their hippocampus as a result of driving and navigation experience over the years. Their place cells will fire as they drive around the city. Taxi drivers, unlike racing drivers, will just need to keep one cognitive map that covers the entire region of their city in order to be successful in their job. To sum it all up, place cells fire as the subject moves around their environment, and the firing of these cells creates a cognitive map in the hippocampus, which contributes to our spatial navigation skills. Thank you.
Thank you, Anshula. I really enjoyed that. I like how you grounded your research in something that was very real and something we can relate to. And as one of the world's worst drivers, I can begin to understand why this might be. So clearly something I need to look into. Thank you so much. Pass to Devanshi now. Devanshi, you know the drill, but please introduce yourself and then say a little bit about your research.
My name is Devanshi and I'm from India. My mentor was Praise Oemi from UCLA. I will be presenting a summary of my literature review, and I investigated the effect of social media on the onset of depression among the emerging adulthood population. Next, please. We're all well aware of what social media is and different sites. It is seen that social media users have increased from 8% to 73%. And with an increase in this number, there's also an increase in the impact social media has on mental health. Emerging adulthood means everyone between the age of 18 to 25. The use of social networking sites like Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, etc. have been extremely popular among these individuals. And with the prevailing use of social media, there is also an increase in factors that contribute to depression. These include self-esteem, sleep deprivation, isolation, cyberbullying, and fear of missing out. These factors are most commonly associated with social media due to various reasons. For example, all of us post pictures on Instagram, models post theirs, and all of us obviously try to look our best. However, this sets unrealistic expectations for people looking at those posts. We tend to feel less confident about ourselves when we look at those perfect pictures. This could result in low self-esteem, which could be associated with the onset of depression. Additionally, rejection is also a contributing factor. When I researched about it, I couldn't find sufficient studies. So I tried to propose my own study that looked at dating apps, rejection, and its contribution to the onset of depression. Next, please. For the literature review, I did an in-depth research about each factor and several studies for the same. I chose around 2 to 3 best studies and evaluated them through their strengths and limitations. I read a lot of research papers before finding the content I would want to include and analyzed each of them based on their sample size, method, reliability, etc. For the study proposal, I first read different studies and their methodology for conducting the experiment. This included aim, hypothesis, participants, eligibility and exclusion criteria, method, etc. I also included a debriefing note for the participants. My aim was to propose the study in a proper manner that is seen in other papers. While I had looked at Facebook, Instagram, etc., I had not looked at dating sites that much. So I decided to propose a study including dating sites and rejection. My study proposal was about how rejection through online and offline dating could be associated with depression and which one, online or offline, could affect individuals more. Who will get rejected and when is all manipulated by the researchers, and after the experiment, a questionnaire is given where participants answer questions about how they feel. Additionally, their heart rate and cortisol levels are measured to eliminate self-report bias in questionnaires. Self-report bias is when participants overestimate or underestimate how they're feeling, and this could affect the reliability of my results, which is why I use physiological assessments as well. This was all done after the eligibility criteria was matched. Next, please. What I found was that all factors were associated with the onset of depression. I was surprised to find various terms given to these factors. Negative social comparison, causing low self-esteem, has coined the term Facebook depression. It includes viewing others' posts and comparing ourselves to them. Similarly, the term vamping was introduced because of the use of social media at night as a result of fear of missing out. FOMO, or fear of missing out, leads young adults to keep using their phone at night to make sure they're not missing out on something their friends or relatives are doing. Lastly, even though the term is social media, it is ironic that it is said to create a sense of isolation in the emerging adulthood population. This is because online spaces are often focused on success, with statuses exaggerating positive qualities and discouraging expressions of loneliness. Through the research and a potential study, I was able to conclude that the social networking sites have been a major contributor to the onset of depression among the emerging adulthood populations, which is characterized by cyberbullying, sleep deprivation, self-esteem, isolation, and fear of missing out. My next steps from here would be sending this paper to the Columbia Junior Science Journal for publication. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Devanshi. I think that's an immensely important and relevant subject for today. And yeah, I'm really excited to see, especially if you pursue the research going forward, what you create. So thank you. Okay, thank you. As you guys are applauding the great work of Devanshi, we're gonna take a break for the next 5 minutes. So you can get up, stretch, grab some coffee. I have some chai right here, which I'm gonna go get some more of. And then we'll come back together in about 5 minutes for a couple more presentations and some concluding remarks. So feel free to switch off your video and we'll be back together in, let's see, the 02 point. Or if you're on half hour, the 32. Okay, everyone, as you trickle back, we're going to move on to our next student speaker. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to pass this now to Ahmed, Rafi, Abed to share a little bit about his research. And of course, you know the drill. Please introduce yourself and a little bit about your background before starting.
Hello, my name is Ahmed Rafi Abed. I'm from Pakistan, and over the past
I think
3
Ahmed.
months. Yeah, audible?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yeah.
And was I audible?
Right. So my name is Ahmed Rafi Abed, and I'm from Pakistan. For the past few months, I've been working with my mentor David Shilvoko. Who's a PhD student at Princeton, and I wrote a literature review, and my research question was Bouncing Cosmologies, a potential solution to the problems of the standard Big Bang model. Next slide, please. So starting from the beginning, the general idea was before the Big Bang theory was that the universe was static and was in equilibrium, and it was always there without any beginning. However, it all changed when an astronomer Edwin Hubble looked up into the sky and observed that the galaxies were moving apart from each other. And so he concluded that they must be in very early time, they must be together and forming a single part, which was thought to be singularity. And this singularity was also a prediction of Albert Einstein, who was Albert Einstein's theory of general relativity. However, at the time and astronomical observations that were made, the standard Big Bang model got itself plagued with many problems that are horizon flatness and magnetic monopole. So later in the 20th century, a physicist called Alan H. Guth introduced cosmic inflation. A cosmic inflation is a theory that describes the start of universe starting from a very singular point, and that was driven by inflaton field that accelerated the expansion of universe exponentially. This accelerated expansion of this universe solved all the problems with the standard Big Bang model. However, with time and more astronomical observations, it was found that the inflation had its own problems, and even famous people like Stephen Hawking and Roger Penrose, who won the Nobel Prize last year, were quick to go against the theory. Next slide, please. You can skip that one.
We're on the solution slide, Ahmed. Should I skip this one as well?
This one. So Paul J. Stein, the cosmologist at Princeton University, introduced bouncing cosmology. The model solves every problem of standard Big Bang model and problem is associated with the inflation. The main ingredient of bouncing cosmology. So the idea is that unlike inflation, which started from a singular point, the universe was already in place before singularity or the proposed start of the universe, and it was contracting. This contraction solved every problem like horizon flatness and monopole and avoided singularity problems. In my paper, I discussed various models of contraction and bounce, which is a transition from contracting to expanding phase as we see it today. And then at last, I combined these two models to form to give a review of a cyclic universe where the universe never gets gets a birth, but it's already in place and it's
Ahmed, we've lost you for a second. Your connection. Let's wait for a little bit, see if Ahmed can reconnect. Okay, what I suggest we do is we wait for Ahmed to reconnect as we can move to our next student speaker, and then when Ahmed's able to join back in, he can wrap up after that. So, and I want to pass it to Gia to share a little bit about yourself and about your research, and then we'll pass that in. But at any point Ahmed comes back in, we can just politely tell him our plan to bring him back in a short amount of time. But Gia, I'll pass to you.
Good evening. I'm Gia Berman from India. My mentor for the Lumiere Research Scholar Program was Andrew Foley, a PhD student at the Johnson Graduate School of Management of Cornell University. My subject of research was organizational theory, and my question, after altering it a sum total of 3 times, has turned out to be bursting the bubble. Can forced experimentation erode good faith in highly legitimized industries? First conceptualized by Meyer and Rowan, previous slide. First conceptualized by Meyer and Rowan in their revolutionary research in organizational theory, industries perceived as highly legitimate, like the education industry, operate within bubbles of good faith, which means their practices are automatically perceived to be rational and appropriate, and they are shielded from all sorts of inspection and criticism. Next slide, please. Thank you. The background of my paper. First, according to acclaimed institutional theorists, legitimized industries, like the education industry, operated on the premise of good faith. Secondly, it was perceived that good faith is immutable, indestructible. An industry's good faith would stand upright as a pillar, regardless of any internal or external factors. And thirdly, forced experimentation. As you are well aware, the COVID-19 pandemic compelled students world over to switch from offline to online education. Next slide, please. I used 3 main methods to carry out research. I reviewed past work on organizational theory, starting from foundational concepts, right up to neo-institutional theories from not more than a decade ago. I proposed the education industry as a model for my research on the transformation of good faith in highly legitimized industries. And lastly, I analyzed current events in the pandemic, specifically interactions between schools and students. Next slide, please. Thank you. And finally, these were my findings. Forced experimentation generated controversy about what worked well about the education industry and what didn't. It made people inspect old and new ways the education industry imparted its services. And that is exactly the opposite of good faith. Good faith meant no one could inspect or criticize the industry. Hence, forced experimentation eroded good faith of the education industry. As online education became the norm, it too became a legitimate offering. In fact, students began to request more online classes, and usage of e-learning solutions shot up. And then something happened. The all-powerful, highly legitimized education industry, in a strange turn of events, started responding to people's requests and adapted more of their courses to become wholly online. Universities and schools sought isomorphism within their institutional environments, which means they began mimicking each other to fit the industry, and once again, started building their good faith from the ground upwards. Hence, through my paper, I established that good faith is dynamic. While good faith ensures an organization's protection from inspection over a period of time, events forcing experimentation beyond legitimate norms can successfully break down good faith, leaving an organization bare to criticism and inspection from stakeholders. Before I end, I'd like to briefly thank the entire Lumiere team, Dhruva, Stephen, Nishtita, sorry, I was just spotting you, Nishtita, Prakriti, Eric, as well as my mentor, Andrew, for providing such a wonderful opportunity. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I started the program, but Lumiere has helped me realize that this is a field I'm passionate about and has really pushed me to take a step forward in changing the field. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, G. I really appreciate that. It's very kind of you to say that at the end. Great job. I mean, as I do research in a related field, I was thinking, wow, I don't think I knew any of those terms or concepts when I was your age, and probably not into my first year of the PhD. So congratulations. I'm going to pass to Mohammed Hook to share a little bit about his research. And then we'll come back to Ahmed at the end, hopefully after resolving some of the connection issues. But I'll pass to you. You know the drill.
All right, greeting to mentors, directors, guests, and most importantly, my peers. Let me start off by congratulating all students on this huge achievement. This accomplishment wasn't easy, nor for some intellectuals that difficult. But the important thing is, all of us made it. As Drake once said, we all started from the bottom and now the home team here. On that note, let me segue into what I've been doing for the past 5 months or so. Next slide, please. All right, the United States and Bangladesh, inequality through the lens of health technology. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Mohammed Haq. I'm technically from the United States, but I'm ethnically Bangladeshi. As a Bangladeshi norm, family is always first. Hence, there were no secrets going around while growing up. Growing up wasn't easy, as I'd have trauma of my late loved ones, since Bangladesh's health sector wasn't as good as the other nations. You know who I'm talking about, the United States, the United Kingdom, etc. As the curious child, I'd ponder upon why this is. I've always wanted to make a prominent change, both within my family, my friends, my city, country, and even the world. With my mentor, Kat, a PhD candidate at the Brown School of Public Health, we're able to come to a consensus on what is going on to effectively find a solution. To start, similar to my peers, we all started with the relative background of the question we would be investigating for the next few weeks. See, humanity has always been progressing up tiers, trying to be the best that we could be. These great achievements humans are making have been, quite frankly, all due to the world of technology. As we mark these achievements one by one, faults will occur within the system. One of them deals with global inequality, as not all countries will receive the same technology at the same time. Think of it as this: when the coronavirus vaccine started to roll out, they're first introduced within the countries they were made in. Not all countries had access to the vaccine initially, leading to an inequality. Through history, this is exactly how a virtual gap of inequality spread by small increments, leading to a national crisis today. Hence, in relation to my study, developing countries like Bangladesh lacked as the developed nations like the United States thrived whenever optimal healthcare technology was available. In this paper, I've used a method distinct to the majority of all students, but one that would precisely evaluate the current standards of healthcare in order to find effective ways to improve upon it. And that would be a literature review. While most peers conducted their own studies, whether it being qualitative or quantitative in terms of AI, population, etc., my job relied on the study of other researchers who have already experimented and collected data on the existing health infrastructure. Hence, all I did was pretty much evaluate and analyze a ton of research papers to precisely figure out where we are today. Don't think, oh, Shino, that took you 15 weeks. Yes, the tedious pressure of going through a bunch of research papers did. Here are the other factors I took into my study for an effective review for you to look at as well. All right, now the fun bit. What exactly did I find that would potentially benefit how we see the world today? First off, I began to realize the information about Bangladesh being revealed from the different papers didn't seem to differ much, even though there were gaps of several years in between these different studies by different people. It inferred that even though several years passed since 2007, the prime turning point of medicinal technology, countries like Bangladesh has yet to progress at an equal pace to developed and resource-rich countries. For example, the United States strives in the fostering of concrete education to their people, allowing for the citizens' entire lives to be set for success regarding finance, the advancement of technology, as well as the supply of hospitality for all. In contrast, developing nations like Bangladesh lack adequate aid, quality of education, wealth, and responsibility in case of failure. It isn't to say the government isn't doing a good job at this, since more factors have to be taken into account. For example, the population's frequent unrest in various sectors have been prioritized as the people's voice matters first. Recent efforts and initiatives led by the government has allowed for the current state of medicine to be decent, but not at its full potential. The creation of eHealth, a service that allows the first level of healthcare, the regular checkup doctor, to be contacted via phones anywhere across the country, has allowed for a digital Bangladesh to emerge. Though studies show that people of certain districts across the country prefer to visit a physical doctor rather than using technology due to not understanding basic English and Roman numerals. This data also revealed the inefficient healthcare, since primary health physicians have a lower degree in education, which is exactly who the people of those certain districts would check up on. There's also the question in the payment of healthcare, in that people will often skip healthcare due to funding issues, since minimum wage is earned from the mass garments industry in Bangladesh. How can all of these issues be fixed? Why not look to the United States? Looking into the steps taken by developed nations worldwide should be taken into consideration for effectiveness. Apart from this idea, there really isn't a definitive answer to the question of closing this inequality gap as of today, since it keeps widening with the innovations of tomorrow. Hence, what Bangladesh can do now is to understand the issues present in healthcare and to solve the question of how can we make Bangladesh's health sector better. All right, I'll just add a few more words. All right, so currently I'm submitting at the International Journal of High School Research, having national news coverage from the Business Standard, as well as the Daily Star here in Bangladesh, as well as presenting in a local medicine journal and a conference. But yeah, that's it for me, and thank you.
Congratulations, and thank you, Shino, for that impassioned review. This is, I love your energy. I really, really appreciate it, and the preparation came into this. We're gonna come back to Ahmed to wrap up his presentation. Ahmed, are you good to go right now?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry for the...
Excellent. Excellent. No, not at all, not at all. Excellent. Ahmed, we'll pass to you whenever you're ready.
Right. So for the solution with all the problems of the standard Big Bang model and inflation, the cosmologist Paul J. Steinhardt introduced the bouncing cosmologies. So what bouncing cosmology really is, that as like a singularity, what bouncing cosmology does is that it predicts a time before singularity. And what the universe was undergoing in that time was that it was contracting to a single point, or sometimes not even a single point. It bounces before hitting singularity, expand. So there's this new idea of contraction before the start of universe, and that can solve all the problems in the standard Big Bang model and inflation, and can produce and generate the results that we need to see in the astronomical observations, such as the picture you can see on the right side, which is the thermal equilibrium of CMBR in the horizon problem, which is actually the horizon problem. So at the end, I just while inflation and the bouncing cosmology seem to solve all the problems, they are just the theoretical models with only mathematical frameworks and no experimental data as of yet, but which hopefully will be available in the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you. And thanks to my mentor, David.
Thank you. And thank you, Ahmed, for your flexibility, something that truly represents a good researcher, someone who's able to work dynamically. Excellent. Well, congratulations, everyone, on being here. I want us to take a second to look at this list of talented, dedicated, remarkable students who have gone through the program and are in the final parts of it. It is certainly not easy to do research. I remember as many of you guys know, Drew and I met in a research program when we were undergraduates at Harvard. And I remember going into the program and just thinking, okay, research, like I'd seen my dad be a professor. I felt like I kind of understand it. I remember doing it and being like, this is really hard. I was like, wow. And at the end of that program, I just kind of helped out with a small project, hadn't really done much. You guys have built your own research papers and dove in really deep, and as shown by these presentations, showcase a level of knowledge that is truly distinctive for your age. So I just want to say a big congratulations to all of you. It's not easy, and it requires a certain and special person to do this level. I also want to just say one quick thing of a word of, which I think connects really closely to what Elizabeth and Drew said at the beginning, that you all have been given a really remarkable opportunity to begin to do research at such a young age. And when you think about how universities are structured, the top, the people who are leading these institutions are both researchers and their teachers. They're researchers and their teachers. And I think one of the nice things about that, the reason behind that, is that as we're learning at the frontier, we're also being forced to recognize that for us to have this opportunity, we should also give back to other students who are hoping to learn, hoping to kind of develop and come to the stage that you guys all are. I think back even about my own family, my dad being a professor, someone who was a really great mentor, but someone had very different life circumstances than his dad, who was a Holocaust survivor, never got to study in university. And when I think of you all, you have dove in and begun this research journey. I'm sure many of you all will go on to do great research. I hope you do, and anything from public health in Bangladesh to the Big Bang, to thinking about why my crippling anxiety comes from my social media accounts. I think it's probably true. But as you do that, remember that there are other people for whom that opportunity doesn't exist to the same level. And I would push all of you all to think about how can I take my research not only to the world, but also the people around me. So I just want to end on that, and I want to say a big congratulations to all of you. It's a journey. Many of you still have a few weeks left. There's some time left, and there's also some next steps for you all. The first is join our alumni network. We have an amazing and growing group of students. We part of that alumni network have events. We have a student advisory board. There's ways to get involved in a multitude of ways. And then we also have Discord, which is really fun and kind of raucous, I will say. So please stay active on Discord. Help do that exact thing by supporting future researchers, future Lumiere research scholars, by being active on Discord, giving them your advice, sharing your perspective, sharing your experience. So a big thank you to everyone here. Thank you to the students, parents, mentors who joined, partners. We are in debt to all of you, and we only exist because of this community together. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy the day and go off and think big thoughts.